Welcome once again to The Lost Signals Discusses Games and Gaming Culture, a pretentious, philosophical, pedantic podcast where we focus on various aspects of video games as well as other issues and topics within gaming in general. Hello there, my friends. Welcome back to Lost Signals Discusses Games and Gaming Culture. Today I am hidden behind a third dungeon level. Scott Thurlow. I'm here with my other hidden items, Jonathan Ian Manzer.
I have alternate costumes.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And Chris Morgan.
Look to see me no more.
Yes. And we are discussing Easter eggs in games specifically. So before we get into it, I think I'm taking a cue from the scholarly leanings of Jonathan Manzer too. In fact, let us define and discuss what should count. What is an Easter egg within games?
Now, was that a beer or a soda that I just opened up?
I don't know. Is that supposed to be an Easter egg?
Yeah. No, go on.
All right. Well, first, I think we should discuss the root of it.
Okay.
Quickly, which I believe was an Atari game.
Yes. Just called Adventure.
And it was actually titled by the developer as an Easter egg.
Yes.
Named after the
springtime activity.
The religious activity that has its roots in the Bible of hunting colored eggs for Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Corinthians 1:2.
Yes.
As they like to say, Jesus did not come back to hunt Easter eggs. He came back for the ham and scalloped potatoes.
He has good taste.
Yeah.
But go on, yeah.
So I would argue that these are hidden things,
elements, we'll say, yeah,
in a video game. Now, the question here, though, is what does it mean for that thing, that object, to be an Easter egg, besides being hidden? Now, there are things that are hidden that are part of the narrative.
Right.
There are things that are hidden like collectibles. I don't think anyone would argue that finding flags in Assassin's Creed 1 is an Easter egg, if anything, a chore.
Yeah. It's a chore.
No, it truly is. Trust us on this one.
I think that was one of the most famous, obnoxious collectibles of all time.
Yes.
But any game has, most games have those. Now, is it always a joke?
That's a good question.
I think,
I'll address in a second, Chris.
All right. Well, I know when we discussed like it before, and like let's say the Stephen King cameo versus like how many different ways did they find to put Stan Lee in the Marvel movies? And what I'm saying is he always seemed to be the consistent Easter egg. You'd go in there,
but that's not hidden. That's a reference. That's referential.
Yes. Now, see, that's the point I'm going to get to.
Okay, so see, there we go.
Yeah.
Good. No, it's a good segue.
All right. How about in it with the thing with the head,
the reference to the thing.
The thing.
It and the thing.
It and the
very
thing.
hard movies to talk about because they name generic things.
Yeah.
Generic titles.
Again, though, because I don't think you can have... you can have maybe background. So I think that Wright, what's his first name? Edgar Wright, does hide Easter eggs because there are things you won't necessarily notice
and aren't like pushed forth. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in background jokes and gags and visual cues. But we're talking about games here. I think that mostly it's stuff that you find randomly. Perhaps it's referential, such as referencing previous games that came out in that from that studio, or referencing a game
or just in general. Yeah,
it could be an in-universe joke.
I agree with that. It could be, yes.
I'm trying to think of what I don't think like finding a hidden log or document is necessarily like there's a weird, I think, between jokes and referential Easter eggs.
Now, yes, that is one of the crux things I was thinking about. So I think that I'm going to agree, or at least add on my proviso, is that yes, they have to be hidden. You have to like somewhat go a bit out of your way to find them generally. Now, not always, because sometimes, like you said, even in the game, they could have a background thing. Like, for example, one that comes to mind, I believe it was in Edith Finch, where just in one of the rooms there was a poster that says the owls are not what they seem, which is a reference, yes, to Twin Peaks. And it wasn't part of the narrative, it was just sort of there. So, like, you didn't necessarily have to go out of your way, but that becomes then, oh, am I supposed to laugh? Haha, oh, I know that reference from whatever. But I think in general, and I do like, you started off with adventure, like, you had to do something very specific that wasn't obvious, and that wasn't part of it. You could get through the whole game without doing it, and it wouldn't make a difference. But if you did it, you find a hidden little, like, bonus thing that is there that could be, again, an in-joke between those fans who share the same interest. But I do think, like, yeah, if it's just hidden in plain sight, if you will, it's less of one. It can be. You're right. It's a little murky.
Well, here's the thing: is an Easter egg not an Easter egg if it's just sitting on the
hard
table?
To find, yeah, I agree. You're right. It becomes a weird thing there. But that's why I'm saying I do think that for the most part and in general, I will define it as, I will accept the definition that you have to do something a little bit either unorthodox or, again, not part. You can play any given game back to front without finding it, and it won't change much. But if you do find it, then you'll get like a little extra thing. It'll be like a layer on top of it.
Well, I mentioned this precast, and it was the first thing I thought of was Fallout 4. When you're in the fort, you see a skeleton behind a broken down wall.
Casks,
with the cask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
And then, which I thought was clever, which I don't know if anybody would get. And then later on, it's just like this obvious reference to Jaws, which felt a little more forced.
Well, yeah, of course, like,
I would consider
the execution is going to be up and down.
Yeah, so what I'm considering is by what we're talking about here, that the Amontillado thing would be more of an Easter egg than the Jaws thing would be.
But is every single referential thing then a on the gradient of Easter egg?
No, that's my whole point.
I think
but you said that the Jaws thing is
just a reference.
Less Easter egg, but you still kind of described it as an Easter egg.
But what I'm saying is that I think maybe that's what I'm distinguishing between, like, the cask. If you threw the cask of Amontillado in there, I thought that would be a cool Easter egg. But then as I was playing the game, I ran across something in one of the things. It's like all the Easter eggs in the Fallout 4. All of a sudden, it's just like, okay, great. Something that could have been clever. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, how many more references are we going to do? So that's my whole point.
It becomes a slippery slope,
right? So in that case, I would consider the Jaws thing not an Easter egg, and the Amontillado thing more of an Easter egg.
I get you. Like, of course, it's going to be subjective, but I think for the most part, yeah, a lot of it's going to overlap in the Venn diagram of, hey, remember this, or do you know this from X other franchise, even if the franchise that's also under the same company's banner. Like, for example, I'll give you guys another one from the Fallout series where you find a skeleton in a refrigerator. And around the time that game came out, that's a reference to Indiana Jones. Right? It's not really like... right? So, like, it's there. Like, haha, remember this? Like...
But is it just referential humor?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Is it a Easter egg?
That's.
Is it an egg or just a eggs?
I'm saying there can be overlap. Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying, but I think for the most part here, I'll give you guys maybe a more clear cut one. And I didn't even actually know about this one until I was doing a bit of research. So, Chris, you might have known him. In the first Batman Arkham Asylum, there was a certain hidden wall, a wall you could blow up that wasn't obvious, but if you did, it had blueprints for Arkham City. So, like, they sort of hinted at the next sequel within game. It was something that you didn't have to do it. Like, again, you had to basically fuck around or, like, sort of luck into it. Like, oh, I'm going to randomly put explosive gel here on this wall, even though I don't need to. There's nothing signaling that there's anything behind it. And it is, I think that's more, again, a true Easter egg or more in line with the definition, I think, as we're parsing it out. That makes sense?
Yeah. I was going to say, like, in terms of referential humor, it's like it's like what I was saying before about the Fallout things. It's kind of like the difference between something subtle and something like by like a Kevin Smith movie or a Seth MacFarlane movie. It's just like referential humor is the humor in it, whereas like as I said, something would be like in the original Evil Dead. You have obviously the movie poster to like The Hills Have Eyes. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I'm running out of my movie Easter eggs because I could think of. There's a lot of little subtle ones that I'll get to. as I think about it, because I can't really think about like in terms of what an Easter egg is versus what reference is. But
I'm saying a lot of times developers think they are equivalent.
Yeah, but that's not true because like one of you guys said, like, how does it contribute to the narrative? Is it something that's in the narrative, but if you like know the Easter egg, it actually gains more significance?
Because the thing is,
It doesn't necessarily have to be the narrative.
I actually am going to say that an Easter egg cannot expand upon the narrative at all. Because at that point,
if it's necessary to understand, then yeah, it wouldn't be an Easter egg.
So, what is it? Metal Gear Solid 5 or whatever has a ton of like extra endings to it that are hidden in if you do certain things that expand upon the thing. But I don't think anyone counts them as Easter eggs. They're hidden parts of the narrative. Sort of goes
beyond Easter egg at that point in a sense. No, I agree. I got a good one because I remember this when I was a kid and it blew my mind when I discovered it. Like, obviously, I think I found it early days of the internet or like some magazine had it in Mega Man X. If you did like this, again, crazy amount of hoop jumping, I think it was something like you had to get through X amount of stages, no damage, like do this, do that, get all the upgrades, normal upgrades. And you did something crazy on one stage. I remember you had to like ride basically, a moving like platform thing to like what looked like death beyond like a drop off, like a cave. But you went up there and there was a secret upgrade where you basically now have the Hadouken from fucking Street Fighter as Mega Man. And it fucking destroyed things in one hit. Now that I think is a true one because you could totally get through the game obviously without that. But if you did a whole bunch of hidden stuff, like very specific set of moves, if you will, and then you got something extra that you could fuck around with and was a bonus on top of, you know, again, the core like baseline stuff.
But was it the Hadouken?
Yeah.
Okay, then I would say that because of the referential humor involved with that, it then becomes an Easter egg.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
As opposed to just a hidden upgrade.
It's both, right? So it's a hidden upgrade that, like, it looks like the Hadouken animation and also is effective against enemies. You know what I mean? Like, it's like basically the Infinity +1 sword, essentially, but you had to jump through some hoops. Like, it was totally not obvious. The game doesn't really give you any hints that it even exists or what to do with it. Like, people fucking around. Like, for example, earlier before the episode showed me like a bunch of couple clips of videos that we found on YouTube. Like your
what
greatest,
culture?
Yeah, what culture had a good one. Some of them took years to find. Like people just have to fuck around enough to like figure it out. Technically, it's there the whole time. But yeah, like I do agree just in general that there's a gray area. So I don't like it. Like here's an example from the opposite end of the scale. I believe in fucking Duke Nukem Forever, the one that took them 13 years to make and was like a huge letdown. Obviously, they had like on a shelf, they had a Master Chief helmet. Like, okay, is that supposed to be? Yeah, exactly.
Not Easter egg,
it's just there to like, right? So I think that one doesn't count because you just sort of supposed to, it's not hidden. You're supposed to see it and be like, oh, okay, I guess. But yeah, here's a good one you might like. So you tell me, let's sort of play reverse game. I'll give you guys one and you can jump in and tell me if you think it counts.
I will give my opinion.
Okay. In Day of the Tentacle, which is a game I know you and I enjoy, you could play Maniac Mansion. Like, it's in its entirety, like, as a separate little mini thing from the arcade machine. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do, and I did play it because you got a trophy for playing on the...
So is that an Easter egg?
I would say yes, because it's, again, I think that it might be inherently referential.
Like I said, a large majority of the times, it probably is. Certainly is, Gudgers.
How about the last Far Cry game where you can go into where they have the video games where one of them you can play is some variant on Blood Dragon?
Well, it's the arcade.
Yeah, the arcade where isn't there some...
It's not a variant though. It's like it's like when you do the arcade mode, pretty much. It's like a level builder, which is cool. Yeah, but like that's part of it. Like it was there the whole time. You know what I mean?
Oh, how about Dead Island with the Hoodoo Voodoo?
Now, that's not a bad one.
Them making an entire quest out of the song from the first...
I think that's a pretty good one, because it's this optional side quest that you have to like go out of your way a bit or search specifically to find, and it references an in-game thing, or at least from the same company. Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't have that on my list. Good call. Like there's a couple, for example, a game I just recently played, which I recommend, called Control, by my boys at Remedy. In that game there were like, you know, your normal collectibles like you mentioned, and documents and stuff, but a lot of it was funny to me because it was like redacted because of the nature of this setting. And they also referenced Alan Wake, which is their previous game. Like it was like they tied it in universe together. Now if you had never played Alan Wake, obviously that's, yes, of course, it's referential, so it wouldn't mean anything to you. But I do like that it was like a nice little thing like in there, like referencing their previous work. That was like kind of an Easter egg-ish thing within a normal collectible, which I think you can have as well. Since you mentioned Far Cry, and you brought this up to me before, in Primal, I believe, right?
Mhm.
You go to a certain cave and you find you do indeed find a blood dragon reference. You find like a fossilized blood dragon skeleton or something like that, I believe. Yeah, which is like, again, you can get through the main narrative, doesn't really add anything, but if you are a fan, again, and you know about it, you might get a kick out of it. So yeah, man, you're right. Like, it's a little, again, I don't think it's cut and dry. We'll never get it 100%, but I think we can come close and we can be like, this one falls more in line and this one doesn't, or this kind of thing.
So I have a couple of...
Yeah. Throw them out there.
One, I'm going to give from my youth, Final Fantasy Tactics. They have a complex side quest where you can get Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII as a character. Again, it's the addition of a character you don't need, but it's referencing another work. Now this one, because this breaks my definition.
Okay.
A programmer, I believe, put in a happy birthday or a proposal. Maybe programmers had them both. I think both of them hidden within the title screens. And if you played it on a certain day, the message would pop up.
Didn't they do that in Arkham City with the Calendar Man?
I was going to get to that one, but yeah, but it's weird. Yes, they. I believe it was a proposal for sure, a marriage proposal to the developer's current girlfriend at the time that was hidden. Yeah, so like I think that is more of one because it doesn't add the gameplay, so you can't do that in game. But like
but it's not referential.
Yeah, it's not, and it's something hidden like by them that if you saw, like, oh, it's kind of a cute, neat thing. Now, yeah, Chris, the Counterman thing was on the little the clip that Ian showed me, and I knew about the thing that were if you visited him on certain days, he would say something different, like the holidays he has marked. But if you visit him on like some random day, which is the day that the game released or something like that, or the date that like Rockstar formed, then he will give you like a little thing again, a la
Rocksteady.
Rocksteady, yeah. A little like speech hinting at the next game, hinting at Arkham Knight, which I didn't know about that one. So that's kind of cool too. But the Counterman stuff, either way, I think is a pretty good one because again, you can get through the main narrative without it. But if you go out of your way and like sort of detective it down, you'll get like a little bonus thing that like, oh, it's nice that they included it. They developers foresight essentially, and they made it and had it in there specifically. Like, here's a good referential one. It's purely referential. If you don't know what it means, you'll never care or get it. In Dead Rising, made by Capcom, they have a store in the mall called Jill's Sandwiches. Like, ha ha ha, reference to Resident Evil. But like, that's it. Like, there's nothing else beyond that.
You're almost a Jill sandwich.
Yeah. So like, that became like a famous memeable thing. So they threw it in there again, just to be like, oh, hey, remember this from Resident Evil? Like, yeah, I remember. So like, I mean, there's a couple. Like, you mentioned the Fallouts, Chris. Like, they've always had like shit like that, like throughout here and there.
Yeah.
References like pop culture stuff, like of course, largely sci-fi. Even the original like Fallout 1 or 2, the old school one had a Mad Max reference. So like that was pretty cool. Like you're just a character dressed as Mad Max essentially and talks to him, and he's an optional encounter. You don't need to talk to him to complete any main quests. So yeah, what else? Oh, here's a good one. A lot of the fighting games sort of known for it. So like, do secret characters then count as Easter eggs?
No, because they're upgrades. Unless you can play a secret character from a different
from a different series or franchise, because a lot of them do have that. And then they just, I think, eventually they just started being like, you know what, fuck it, let's throw them all together anyway, make our own game out of it, like Marvel vs. Capcom, like shit like that. So yeah, man. Sorry, did you have one? You gonna say something, Mike?
No. Well, something just occurred.
Were there any good ones in Mass Effect? I know you like that franchise.
Yeah, it's really funny because I was thinking about Mass Effect if there were any, and a lot of the I think a lot of Mass Effect, their references come from where like looking at them, being a fan of science fiction, the way Beth and I are. You can look at the game and say, oh, you're a fan of Babylon 5. Oh, okay, you got this from Deep Space Nine.
But a lot of that is pretty much referential.
You rip from this. Oh, you rip from this.
No. It's not rips. It's influence.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is, well, it's like
very fine line though.
Well, right. Well, that's homage versus ripoff versus
good episode there. Is it an honest influence?
Should someone be sued or not?
No. But seriously, it's not. What I'm saying is it's not anything that you could put your finger on. You could definitely say like, oh, this was an influence to that.
Sure.
But, oh yeah. I did. Mass Effect 3. In the DLC, there's an arcade level and they have their version of Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Okay.
which I thought was fantastic. I would spend hours, literally hours, playing that.
Yes.
But
you think that one counts?
I would
think
say
it probably would.
because it has nothing to do with the narrative, and Beth had no idea what it was. I had it as kids, but Beth's like, "Why are you fascinated?" I'm like, "It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots," and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "You're fucking kidding me, right?"
I'll allow it.
All right, so there you go.
I think it works. Yeah, good one. Another big one, or probably more well known, Rockstar, who I confused with Rocksteady just earlier, but in the GTAs and the Red Deads, they always have like. There's a Sasquatch, or like there's definitely been UFOs, I believe, in almost every GTA game. If you go to the right place at the right time and a certain set of conditions are met, you can see a UFO in the sky. And like there's a lot of conspiracy theories about that and about other games in general. Like, there might be something hidden. Like, I'm moving to something now. Actually, just thought of it. Not even today. The other week, we were just hanging out bullshitting, and you had showed me like a whole Shadow Colossus thing where people thought there was like a hidden 13th Colossus and like tracking it down. It doesn't actually exist. It wasn't ever there, but like people thought it might be because of possible hints and things set up in the game.
And then when they remastered it, they actually did put in an Easter egg.
Yeah, based upon the conspiracy theory. Yeah.
To reward this.
So that's a pretty good one. I think that really like counts. Like that's one that is a sort of a thank you to the players and the fans who supported the game. Just for them, and certainly was also an Easter egg. So yeah, man, like I think they can be fun for sure, but sometimes they can be like, again, overbearing or grading, like reference just for reference's sake. And you're like, that's not really an Easter egg. Like I guess you want it to be. You think of it, developers, as such, obviously, but it may or may not. Like of course, depending on the audience. I'll bring another one too. Did you guys play any of the newer like Wolfensteins? Or Doom.
Yeah. Wait, what was it? The New Colossus?
New Colossus, New Order, and Doom 2016. So in those, I think this is less of one, but maybe it's a good case study. There were hidden spots throughout each area, each map, each level, where you could go in and play like the old school rendered style, either Wolfenstein or Doom. Like 16-bit style.
You could play it on the sub, right? In was it New Colossus?
You could play. There were hidden like areas to find them at.
If it's hidden, then yes, that is.
And there was a whole set of like of course you get an achievement for finding them all, and you can get through the game without them. But they included a reference obviously to themselves, pretty much their original formats. So I think that kind of more counts, right? It was neat and fun, but you didn't have to. Yeah, one good.
Here's an interesting one, because I don't think it is now.
Okay.
Link's Awakening has like the Chain Chomp and a bunch of Mario
stuff from Mario,
references.
right?
But they're not hidden. They're
part of the plot, right?
Yeah. So I don't think that. I think that's just referential.
I think it is too, because like Link's Awakening is, spoiler, like 20 years later, basically a dream-ish game, right? The dream fish and all that. So it's Link's dream of like featuring other Nintendo characters, more or less. But yeah, you're right. They're not hidden. The Chomp is just there in Marion's house, right? And other characters like I believe Mario himself, or a character that resembles him, as part of like the trading quest. So yeah, I think I agree with you on that front, that it's not really because you can't not encounter it, pretty much, right? You have to get through it. Yeah. I think at this point I would say that, yeah, an Easter egg has to be something where if you don't see it at all, it doesn't like affect the main, again, the baseline core narrative and or mechanics even. Mm-hmm. Like, a good one. I just did my yearly annual playthrough of Resident Evil 4, and I never really did this before, kind of oddly, where after you finish it the first time, you can restart, like, basically New Game Plus, and the merchant guy will then sell you, like, a Tommy gun with infinite ammo if you can afford it. So, like, again, it's not quite obvious, but if you go to it and
I don't think that's an Easter egg because it's not referential. It's just
an upgrade?
Upgrade, yeah.
But do they have to be then? See, that now we come back to that.
I think they do have to be.
I feel like...
I think it has to be a jokish thing, not a super-powered
but it could
item.
It's weird because, yeah, like, my instinct wants to say, like, by and large, they are jokey referential, but they could also be, let's say, mechanically relevant, useful. You mean, like, for example, what if you get like here's a good one for all of you. I believe it was one of the Fallouts, I think Vegas. Mm-hmm. You can get a gun like that resembles the one from Blade Runner, but also is a very good gun that uses like specific type of ammo.
Right. It's referential, jokey, but also a Tommy gun, infinite gun
doesn't reference anything. All right. Okay. I think you got me on that point. I'll concede.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about from?
Got one.
Well, this is going to... A lot of my stuff's coming from movies because video games... You guys played a lot more video games
sure.
than I do because, as we discussed before, I had this video game blackout like through most of the 90s to the
Yes.
Early 2000s. But
A lot of games like to reference movies that you've seen.
that's true.
For sure.
But in the remake of the Dawn of the Dead, which I did not like, there's one thing that
I liked it a lot.
which I loved. One of the stores was named Galen Ross, and it was like in a 1970s kind of cursive, and it was the actress from the first one, which to me I was just like, Galen Ross, that does sound like you would see like a clothing store from the 70s. Would that then count as an Easter egg?
I think
Probably
it
more
does,
so, yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Especially in films where, like, again, it's not obvious. It isn't like if Galen Ross was somehow a big part of the plot. You know what I mean? Like,
It was the
but it's just
actress's
there in
name.
the background.
Yeah.
The same way Jill Sandwiches is a
Yeah. I think it's very similar to
That's
that.
actually what made me think of that.
Sure. And there's, of course, like Ian and I were discussing this one. I have it on my list. That famously in Silent Hill 2, there's like an ending where the dog's controlling everything. It's like a non-canon-ish ending, like a non-standard one, if you will. But if you do enough hoop jumping, like I said, you get to see that, and it's like a bonus little like alternate jokey take on things. So yeah, man, like I don't know, like I always find them pretty neat. Like now, yeah, like we said, they can sometimes be grating, Chris. Like you're like, thanks for the obvious Jaws one or
Yeah.
whatever, like obvious insert here. But of course, your mileage is going to vary on like whether you think it's effective or not. But for the most part, I appreciate the effort of any developers / writers, etc., who go through the trouble of like just throwing something in there. Like, yeah, even if it's fan service or whatever, like it's still kind of neat that they put in there as like an appreciative little move. And I'm always on the lookout for them too in games. I'm like, again, depending. I'm like, okay, that's neat. Like, it's cool that you had that. Good job. Like, I don't mind it. Yeah.
I like watching videos occasionally on Easter eggs because occasionally I'm like, it's an interesting thing they did.
Yeah, like, or yeah, you can find like when you get
That's generally my. I'm either or huh.
You're like, pretty cool. Yeah, sure. So like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I appreciate them in general. Like I said, some studios are a bit more known for them, but here and there, like you'll see something pop up, and for the most part, I think it's pretty cool. I don't know. You got any other ones that I didn't mention or think of that were like sort of impressed you at the time from your youth or even recently?
No.
It's really funny because most of the stuff I was thinking was Easter eggs. I'm like, no, that's kind of more of an aesthetic. Like,
Sure.
The silent, whatever it is, the I can't believe it's not the Twilight Zone or Outer Limits that you find in Alan Wake.
Oh, Night Springs.
The Night
Yes.
Springs.
That's actually a really good one.
Yeah, I didn't really know if that was Easter eggs or if that was
I
more
think
of a
it is.
referential.
Let's use
thing.
this as a case study. You remember
Okay.
this from Alan Wake?
I never played Alan Wake.
Okay, so you could find television sets like variously throughout certain areas, and it would be like a night, like an obvious homage take on Night Springs. I think I showed you some of them maybe
You
one
did,
time.
but there's also Max Payne had that
The detective
television show in it.
the
That
serial
was
killer
great.
one.
But those are
That's all
more
Remedy
like-
games.
But those are collectibles in a sense. They're not. Well, at least in Max Payne, it wasn't hard to find these. These are you just like they're jokes interspersed throughout the game.
Yeah, actually,
They're somewhat out of the way.
in
Alan Wake, at least.
Alan Wake, you kind of had to know what you're looking for.
Fair enough.
But, like,
I didn't play it, so I just saying from what
it
Max-
added to the world, but if you didn't see them, it's not like you're missing out
Mm-hmm.
from like the main core narrative. It doesn't. It's not like there's chunks removed and you have to watch these television sets. But if you do, it's a neat little thing, and of course, it's a reference to Twilight Zone, or at least done in that style. But it's still original content. Remedy loves doing that kind of shit.
And like Destroy All Humans, the first one. I mean, it's just like there's no. I mean, a lot of it's just referential. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
but that's part of the.
But that, I mean, that's
theme,
part of the
gameplay.
aesthetic. That's my whole point. Was like I was having a hard time with this because I'm like I couldn't think of any one Easter egg except for the whole aesthetic is essentially a callback or reference to.
Sure.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
But you guys know, this is a PSA for all of us. The remastering Destroy All Humans,
Yeah.
like
Look forward
totally
to it.
like redoing it from the ground up, not just putting like a fresh coat of paint style. So that seems cool. So
That's actually
Be on
why
the
I
lookout for
actually
that.
stopped playing it because I'm like, oh, I don't want to burn myself
you
out.
might as well just wait
know.
for it. Yeah.
I mean, it was. I definitely was worth buying it again. So
Yeah, but sure, man. So like again, a number of ones I mentioned, I thought were pretty well integrated, pretty well done, and like I said, I like to be personally on the lookout, and if there's ever like one that like sort of elevates itself, like all right, the game was cool, but you know what, had a couple of nice hidden things that sort of elevated its score, if you will, its rating in my mind, and yeah, like you said, E, there's tons of videos out there that just go through them and be like, hey, 10, 12, 15 best Easter eggs or whatever.
I already said them, but what culture, especially Jules, who
Give them a shout out.
They're great, and they have a number of videos on there about Easter eggs.
Yeah, and send us your favorite ones if you so wish, or like point out ones that you liked or were cool that we might have missed. And yeah, man, there's a couple games coming out this fall that I think Borderlands 3 certainly is going to have Easter eggs, I would think. Because Gearbox does that. Borderlands 2 had a whole bunch. Again, some of us, yes, were just references, but some of them not quite. Like secret, for example, how about this? Secret like mini bosses or hidden bosses that, like, again, not necessary to complete the plot or anything, but if you go out of your way, if you do a certain amount of things, depending like how many hoops and what kind they make you jump through, you can fight a bonus little thing.
There's an SNES game, which I can't make on, where I think if you do a bunch of hoops for the mini boss, you fight a character from another one of their series.
Okay. That sounds about right, yeah.
So that would be, but I don't think just a random mini boss or extra boss. Like, for instance, from Final Fantasy VII, the weapons aren't Easter eggs.
They're not. Okay. I mean, I would agree with that too. So again, they can be, but depending on like the nature of them, we'll say like how they're integrated into a given game. Yeah, I'll agree with that. So yeah, I think if nothing else, that'll about do it. It's not much to say really, but I like the idea of them pretty much. And like I said, I did some vague research, point out some main known ones. Oh shit, there's one. Sorry, I'll end with this one. A famous old one is John Romero's head in Doom, where like if you go through a certain wall, do a certain thing, you after beating the main boss, it's a big pixelated image of his head.
Didn't they kind of redo that in Nier Automata, I think?
I think they might have. I didn't play Nier Automata.
Like you kill the Nintendo boss heads?
I think it's possible. I believe that is the case if I recall. I just didn't play that game, but it does sound familiar now you mention it. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. Like, I like when developers sort of take the piss out of themselves, and that's not bad, That's cool. So yeah, man, I think that'll do it for this one. Sort of a nice breezy one, and we may or may not have an Easter egg ourselves. I guess you'll have to find out later on. But I think that'll do it for now. I will go back into my hidey hole. I've been Scott Thurlow, here with Jonathan Ian Manzer.
I've enjoyed scrambling some Easter eggs.
Yes, and Chris Morgan.
I have nothing to add to that. I really thought I would.
The opposite of an Easter egg. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Good night.
So,
editing and engineering by
sit down.
Christopher Morgan.
Just have a cigarette.
Music by
I'm going to give
Christopher Morgan
a baby-eating monologue.
Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.
Babies taste great. They're like the veal of people.